Hey guys, Coach Nick here with the 10-0 Mindset, where my goal is to provide you with all of the tools, resources, and support that you need to create happier, healthier gymnastics. I'm so glad that you're here with me today. In today's episode, we're going to talk about perfection and perfectionism. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines perfection as the condition, state, or quality of being free or as free as possible from all flaws or defects. Obviously, perfection is this ideal state, free from flaws and defects. When we think about gymnastics, oftentimes this is the goal, to be perfect, to have no deductions. However, it's just not a realistic or sustainable goal, and inevitably it leads to disappointment on all fronts. Merriam-Webster also defines perfectionism as the refusal to accept any standard short of perfection. Let's think about this for a moment. Perfectionism isn't only when you're trying to have perfect gymnastics, it also includes when you won't even consider another acceptable standard. In your mind, perfection is the only acceptable form of gymnastics. I want you to start thinking now about how we can potentially dismantle this belief that we need to be perfect. Throughout this episode, we're going to work together through some strategies and ideas that you can use to conquer perfectionism. I'll also include a link to this Conquering Perfection workbook that accompanies these activities that you can use at home to continue working on improving yourself. Let's talk about what the big 10 ideas are for this episode on conquering perfection. The first idea that we want to talk about is realizing that there are no perfect humans. There's no such thing as a perfect human being. This I can promise you. You can search and search, but you're not going to find a perfect human that is completely without flaw or defect. Another big revelation you need to have, and I hate to break it to you, is that you're not going to be the first. You're not going to be the first perfect person. What situation are you in that you're stressing yourself out trying to be perfect? Think about that situation, and then let it go, and allow yourself to get back to being a normal, imperfect human being. The second big idea that we want to understand about perfectionism is the difference between being a perfectionist and an optimalist. Now, an optimalist is a made-up word, but there's a healthy and unhealthy way to express perfectionism. I know that seems kind of contradictory, but having high standards isn't itself a bad thing. It's when we let those standards hold us back or paralyze our progress that it becomes an issue. By conquering perfectionism, I'm not asking you to limit your standards. What I'm asking you to do is to add a perspective of reality to them. Do your goals feel like distant shores, and you're stuck in some tiny little boat, unable to ever reach them? Perfectionism leads to anxiety and flat out driving yourself nuts. What we want to do is try to convert those distant shore goals into positive, manageable ideals that take us in the right direction. What are some ideals that can be your guiding star? Maybe your ideal is continual improvement, or improving competitive success, or personal development. Whatever your guiding ideals are, they can take you in the direction of improvement and get you closer to your distant goals than you ever thought was possible. Our third big idea is this 6-step process that comes to us from a newer branch of philosophy and therapy called acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT. ACT encourages us to realize and accept that pain is an inevitable part of life, something that we can't avoid. What we can avoid, though, is our resistance to pain and how we think about pain. So let's move down this 6-step process. Step 1 is to diffuse. Don't overly identify with your thoughts. Think about the thought and label it. Next, step 2 is to expand. Recognize that you can allow this emotion to exist. Even when the weather is bad and there are clouds in the sky, it may even be raining. Behind this weather pattern, the sky itself is still untouched and intact. Step 3 is to connect. Give yourselves fully to the current moment and be present in the now. Step 4 is observe. Observe yourself. See your thoughts and emotions as they pass through your head. Step 5 Identify. Identify what your core values are. What are your top 5 or 6 values? Step 6, the final step, is committed action. Act in accordance with your values, whether you feel like it or not. This 6-step process takes you from experiencing a negative thought or emotion all the way through taking a committed action that is aligned with your core values. Big idea number 4 is the idea of being an incremental optimizer versus a perfect optimizer. A perfect optimizer says to themselves, I have to implement everything perfectly today. Now that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. An incremental optimizer, on the other hand, says, what are little distinctions and steps that I can take today? In this manner, you're able to improve a little bit each and every day. Try seeing if you can have fun and get 1% better today. You'll find that those little improvements aggregate and compound over time. Our 5th big idea is planning in 3D. 3D planning is a helpful tool that you can use to break larger goals into smaller action items. The first D stands for define. Define your ideal. What's important for you? If you can, write it down or think about what you would like to be or do. The second D stands for divide. Divide that bigger goal into some smaller, single steps that will get you to your ideal outcome. Finally, the third D stands for daily. What can you do daily to work toward those single steps, which eventually take you to your larger ideal? Using 3D planning is a simple way to break up lofty goals into easier to manage, actionable items that you can tackle each and every day. The 6th idea that helps us conquer perfection is the idea of celebrating. Celebrating successes, small and large, and celebrating life. Right now, you have this big goal, this huge, big thing that you want, and you're feeling so far away from it. Instead of that, celebrate the little things that help you on your way to that goal. Continue to do those little things daily, and continue to celebrate those small successes. It's equally important to celebrate life as a whole. Think about this. What are 3 tiny, magical moments or things that you're grateful for? The truth is, you probably have a ton of great and happy experiences and things that you could be grateful for. Sometimes, though, it can be easy to forget about them. Take a step back and remember all of the things that you have to be grateful for. The 7th big idea is a big one, and we're going to talk about some new terms. Our first term is a heartaholic. A heartaholic is someone who believes that everything has to be hard or difficult or challenging. Sometimes life is hard. There's no getting around that. But sometimes we're making life harder than it is, and we don't need to do that. Sometimes gymnastics is hard, but sometimes we make gymnastics harder than it needs to be. How would you show up if it was easy? How can you make things more easy? The second term we're going to use is what I call a good enoughist. Instead of a perfectionist, think of yourself as a good enoughist. What are your good enough standards for your gymnastics? Now, I'm not saying that you should settle for subpar gymnastics, but I'm saying that if you're making progress towards your goal, you aren't going to be able to do it all at once. If you're making progress towards your goal, what is good enough for today? What is good enough for this one practice? When can you be satisfied, even if it's not perfection? Finally, consider your floors and ceilings. If the ceiling is your perfect ideal, and the floor is your good enough standard, are your floor and ceiling too close? How can you create more acceptable space between your good enough standard and your perfect ideal? On to big idea number 8. Big idea number 8 is our stress and suffering formula. Our stress and suffering formula says that S equals P times R. Stress or suffering equals pain times resistance. Pain is inevitable. It's a part of life. There's going to be times where you're hurt, or scared, or worried. And that's okay, something that you have to accept. That's a part of being alive. But your resistance to that pain is optional, and in fact, the more that you resist that pain and try to dispute it or confront it, the more stress and suffering it adds to your life. Again, remember that we don't have the option of whether or not to experience pain, but we do have the option to put up resistance to that pain, or to accept it and move forward. Our ninth big idea has to do with psychological injuries. A psychological injury is any thought or state that you're currently in that's got you feeling overwhelmed. Are you feeling any psychological injuries right now in your gymnastics career? What are you going through? On the spectrum of stressed out to completely paralyzed, where do you fall? Here are some questions to consider. Do you need to engage more? What can you do to engage more with your goals and values? And are you recovering enough? Are you giving yourself the time you need to recover from tough times and to nurture your mentality and your mindset back to health? Our final big idea number 10, is another acronym, and it's going from fearing to daring. The FEAR acronym gives us 4 ways that we can potentially be stuck in fear. F stands for fused with thoughts, E stands for excessive goals, A stands for the avoidance of discomfort, and R stands for remoteness from our values. On the other hand, the DARE acronym gives us the antidote for these same 4 common problems. D stands for diffusing our thoughts, A stands for accepting discomfort, R stands for realistic goals, and E stands for engaged values. When you're experiencing one of these common fear setbacks, switch instead to the corresponding antidote and work on that for a little bit, and then check in and see how you're doing. While I've got you here, let's do a little quick guided meditation that can help you with conquering perfectionism. Find a comfortable position, whether it's sitting or whether it's lying down. Gently close your eyes. Focus on your breath. Breathing in and breathing out. Taking slow, deep breaths. Letting go of any tensions in your mind and body. Centering, breathing, and letting go. The intention with this meditation is to help you quit being a perfectionist and start being an incremental optimizer. Take a deep breath and silently say to yourself, there are no perfect human beings. There are no perfect human beings. There are good, great human beings, but no one is perfect. Take another slow inhale through your nose, and as you exhale through your mouth, imagine letting go of all of the stress you carry from trying to be perfect. Again, inhaling and exhaling any and all stress. Accepting yourself and becoming the type of person that incrementally optimizes. Slowly, steadily, day in and day out. Now feel into your life as a perfectionist, the daily stress of having high standards and rejecting reality. Feel the effects of living this way. Now, imagine being an optimalist. You have high standards and embrace the constraints of reality. You know you're never going to be perfect. There will be times where you fall short, and you allow yourself to be human. You realize that there are only 24 hours in a day, and you celebrate everything you do. Feel the freedom, the joy, and the power that comes with being an optimalist. Having self-acceptance and embracing your humanness a little bit more every day. Take a few more deep breaths and think about a recurring negative thought or feeling you experience. Feel the thought and emotion without rejecting it or thinking that you shouldn't be having it. Practice accepting the thought now, letting it be there. Now visualize stepping back and diffusing from the thought, allowing your thoughts to be present and not making yourself wrong. Don't over-identify and fuse with it. Label it. Thank your mind for sharing. Say, I notice I'm having the thought, and then just let it be. Now expand, accepting that negative emotions are part of the process. See your emotions moving like the weather. Some days it may be sunny, cloudy, or stormy, but behind every weather pattern is the sky. The sky is untouched by any of those transient weather patterns, just like with you and your emotions. Step back now and feel the spaciousness you experience when you don't have to get rid of every negative thought and feeling. You let go of the struggle. You let them pass through. You engage with the present moment. You practice being mindful and observing what you're thinking without judgment. You identify with your top values and connect with what is most important to you. Then, you take committed action and act in accordance with your deepest values, no matter what thoughts or feelings or emotions you're having. Take a moment to breathe into the power of this practice in your life. Now bring your attention to becoming an incremental optimizer, letting go of the perfectionist, the one that needs to implement everything perfectly today, the one who oftentimes feels frustrated, burnt out, or paralyzed. Take a deep breath and let it go, letting go of the perfectionist. Again, inhaling and exhaling. Now imagine making little distinctions and tiny improvements in your daily life. You incrementally optimize and compound them over time. Through this, you experience magic. It's not going to be tomorrow or the day after that. You are in it for the long haul. You celebrate the tiny things, rather than feeling like you're constantly falling short of your perfect ideal. You are an incremental optimizer. Take a few moments to just breathe, to be with your thoughts, your emotions, and your breath. Take a deep breath in through your nose, feeling all of the love and hope in the world entering into your body and your brain. As you exhale, imagine all of the perceived limits that you've placed on yourself, tumbling out of your body and out of your mind. Take a few more deep breaths and bring your attention back to the present moment. Slowly open your eyes. Take a few more deep breaths. As you continue into your day, allow yourself to be a human being, one who makes mistakes, but makes incremental steps in the right direction to slowly and steadily create the life that you want. As always, I'm so proud of you for taking this time today to improve yourself and to work on becoming a better and more effective person and gymnast. I believe in you, and I won't rest until you believe in yourself as much as I believe in you.